Hello, my fellow Alaskans. How are you all doing out there tonight? I am just trying to get an early jump start on today's debate for Senate District N and what is going to be going on here. Wanted to make sure I got good sound for everybody to be able to hear. As you can see, plenty of the people have shown up here. We've got Clayton, Scott Clayton running for candidate for Senate District N. We've got David Wilson running for the same Senate district, and we got Stephen Wright in the very back there. I don't know if you can see him. He is here. This is the great debate between three Republicans, if you want to call them all Republicans. I see two in the room. One is very questionable. And it's going to be very interesting to hear what goes on here tonight. We paid $3.5 million to take a poll here in Alaska back in August. And hopefully you guys are all hearing me loud and clear. I'm going to plug the microphone in now and camera around so I can get a little bit more up close and personal with you guys. All right, hopefully you guys can all see me and hear me loud and clear. Make sure that I got all the good sound going on here. Edna is bringing up the microphones for the debate that is going to be happening here real soon. And from the sounds of what I just heard in my eardrums blasting out, you guys can hear me as if I'm speaking right directly in front of you in a very loud voice, which I'm not. I'm just talking in a normal, regular voice right now. We are here at the Alaska School of Government, and if you're not familiar where that is at the Real Life Church in Palmer, Alaska. Google Real Life Church Palmer, and you'll be able to bring up where the Alaska School of Government happens at, which is usually on every Monday during the candidate season for running for elections. Other than that, it's usually every other Monday during the month, and they're easy to find if you're on Facebook. Just put AK Alaska Government School of Government, it's Alaska School of Government, into the search bar, and you should be able to bring them right on up. They always try to post of the upcoming meetings and debates that are going to be going on here, and or what the topic is going to be. Earlier this last week, I had gone to what they had for introduction to why we should be having the con, and those whose dark money, that dark money we were supposed to remove from our elections, why that dark money wants us all to vote no for the con. Definitely a well worth watching, and lots of questions asked by the audience that was there that participated in that event that day that made it all worthwhile being there and streaming it to all of you. And it has had pretty good traction. If you do watch it, please remember to like and share, just like you should do with this video right now. Like and share. We are here for Senate District N Senate debate tonight with Scott Clayton, David Wilson, and Stephen Wright are going to be duking it out. There was only three candidates in the race, and with the way we have our elections, $3.5 million was paid for the largest poll in Alaska to just say that these three Alaskans, that these three different candidates that are running right now, we're going to automatically move into the general election, which is when the real serious election began. But that poll gave us a good idea towards the voting environment and who people are leaning towards right now. And from what I saw of that massive poll that we did through the entire state of Alaska, for nearly 98% of all the candidates that were running there automatically moving into the general election, that $3.5 million poll just gave us a really good idea of which candidates need to work harder to get elected this year and how well the swamp is entrenched in Alaska. And that's very obvious in districts that's like, let's just say Eagle River, and you have Sharon Jackson against Dan Sadler. Sharon Jackson, by hands down, is a far better candidate. She will work for Alaskans. She is for Alaskans, and she will do everything that she can to help make sure that it benefits all Alaskans. Where Dan Sadler came right on out during his last debate that I was at and live streamed, came right out and said that he's all for the binding caucus. He 100% supports it, so he's willing to sell out your voices and votes just on that matter of a fact. And he, in his idea of what would be best for our permanent fund dividend, that we just don't receive one because government knows how to spend it better than you do. And in a lot of ways, that's not going to be much different than what you're going to be seeing here going on tonight when it comes to those who have run for office before and those who have not, and those that have not run for office and won. Kind of is a vice versa, and I kind of screwed that up there. But the bottom line is those that have run for this race right now, there's two of them and one that hasn't, and one of them that has been sitting in the Senate now for 2 terms, 3 terms, somewhere around in there, and it's going to the point that if we already know where his voice and his votes are going to, and it's not what benefits all Alaskans. It in fact benefits where he can feast the most at the table, and instead of collecting the scraps on the side. And I'm not sure if we want candidates like that sitting in Juneau. I know I don't. I want someone that's working for me, is working for my neighbor, working for the person that lives down the street, everybody that lives within my community, not this one specialized little group that they're going to answer to and cater to and give their votes to when it comes time to voting for the budget. And that budget was $18 billion this past year. And that's, to be honest with you, that still didn't really include our permanent fund dividend in that stolen portion that they gave us, that $2,200 less than what it should have been with the energy rebate added on top of it. That was just this year's $2,200 that they have stolen. Let's but never forget the $14,000 over the last 7 years that has been taken out of each and every Alaskan's hands. I know many of you got your permanent fund dividends and you went to go fill up your fuel oil tanks, and you found out that $1,000 that you paid last year to get 400 gallons of fuel oil, that $1,000 this year barely bought you 200 gallons of fuel oil, double the cost to heat your homes this year. Just wait, your electric bill is going to be doing the same thing. I know you're seeing it at the gas pump prices. We went up over 55 cents in just over the weekend. Some places have gone up to 65 cents more than what it was, $5.15 a gallon. I'm sure Anchorage is seeing those increases starting to skyrocket through. It doesn't have nothing to do with what Joe Biden claims is causing it to happen. The reality is they shut down the production. We have no ability to make sure that we're energy independent, and we're buying it from places like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela and back from China, the same oil reserves from our strategic reserves that we're supposed to use in a time of crisis for our nation. That's who Joe Biden sold those reserves to, and we Alaskans, we people of the United States of America, are paying the price for it at the pump in just that regards. Going in, buying a carton of a dozen eggs has gone double in price from what it was 1 year ago. I went and bought a block of cheese and paid $5 more than what I had paid a year ago for it, $10 before, it's $15 now. These are the prices that we're all paying as everyday Alaskans, and we need to make changes, and to make those changes happen and take effect takes voting in and electing people that work for us. Example would be Mary Patola, our newest congresswoman in D.C. right now. She has already been put on to the Resources Committee that was immediately appointed to a freshman, pretty much unheard of anywhere else within the House, but she's a Democrat and they're already lining her pockets. Well, not only on top of that, think about who voted for Halen, who has given us the most destructive economic impacts to Alaska, shutting down anything that we have to do that puts the money into our government's hands to be able to spend for the services that they claim that we all need, and spent $18 billion on this past year. It is your voices and your votes that need to be taken acknowledgement on every single daily basis. And on November 8th, it's going to be more important for every Alaskan to mobilize and get out there and do exactly that. We need to get out and vote. We need to rank the red. This is one election that they're all red. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to be ranking 2 out of the 3 on this ballot. If David was still in my area, he was my senator the last 2 years down there in Juneau, and I know who I voted for and who I didn't vote for during that race. And if it was ranked choice voting, I don't think we would have saw David down there that year because of the particular candidates that we had running and the mobilization to get out and vote that was initiated back then. But this is one race that could swing both ways, and if we don't rank the red, we may find ourselves with another swamp creature sitting back down there in Juneau instead of selecting someone that's going to work for all Alaskans. We don't need the swamp. We need Alaskans working for Alaskans down there in Juneau. We're seeing it all over the place. Lots of races. The unions are buying the races. Healthcare is buying the races. NEA Alaska is buying the races. And if you see who the vote no on the CON is, that is funding and financing all of that, those who I just named off, the ones that are capitalizing off of our government's inability to be able to follow the laws and do what they want, passing out our money, stealing what rightfully belongs to each Alaskan and handing it out to those same organizations, making sure their pockets are well padded, while the most people that are 1/3 of Alaskans that are living in poverty are shoved even further into poverty because they're having their money stolen directly out of their hands. I mean, name me one other state out there in the United States besides Alaska that taxes their children. I'll sit here, I can wait all day. Come on, just one. Name one state that taxes their children. I rest my case. So again, we're here for the Senate District Ends debate here for the Mat-Su Valley. We've got Scott Clayton that is running in this. We got David Wilson and we got Stephen Wright. They are the three that made it through the primary jungle, which, well, if you have less than four people or less running in a race, they automatically moved on to the next portion of it. And that's exactly where we stand at right now. We're in the second portion of this election, which is the general election. It was automatically known in the primary that all three of these folks would be moving forward to the general election. The trick now is how many of these three are getting out and knocking on the doors, asking people to call, asking people to vote for them, and all that other good stuff. Looks like Edna's getting ready to start here, so I'm going to go ahead and re-steal my spot the best that I can. Since people stole my... I can move down one more. You just gotta put up with the camera swinging back and forth all the time. That's all.
How's it going?
Going good. How are you?
Good. Doing good. Thanks for coming.
So if you're just tuning in, please remember to like and share this video. Edna, like I said, is just about ready to get started here. And thank you all for being here, and hope to see you a little bit later. Again, like and share this video. Help us grow. Go to Politadick.com, click that support button. That is one way that you can make sure that I make a lot more of these. I'm hoping to gain an interview while I'm down in Sitka on Saturday, and but I reached out to a couple of candidates but haven't heard anything back, so I'll continue to try to do that. Or if you're watching and you're from Sitka right now, I will be in your area on Saturday and late Saturday afternoon or early afternoon. I'd love to do an interview with you while I'm there. Otherwise, I'm just going to have a lot of hangout time until 7 p.m. that night. It would be great to hear from you or hear back. Again, like and share, help us grow. Go to Politadick.com, click that support button. All proceeds go right back into doing what we're doing here right now. And every penny goes into upgrading equipment and making sure that we can afford the ever-increasing gas prices to go where we need to go.
I said you're part of it. The Ohio Bridge.
The assembly, yeah.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Made it completely. No. But, I mean, you know, maybe I should sit with Bert here. So,
Sure. I won't.
wait a minute. I don't know about that. I might.
Listen, I appreciate you supporting me and helping me.
It seems like I've seen
a lot of
No, it's okay. You're okay.
So, Chad,
I do.
why aren't they on Facebook?
I'm still planning a couple. Still fundraising. Still going slow.
that does not
Not
bring
gonna.
her up as an advertisement on their articles. She is on just about every
No, I wanna be strong.
They stopped me. I'm like, okay.
But every day.
Okay, if I can go ahead and get your attention so we can get started, please.
I will.
So my husband will open in prayer and then we'll do the pledge.
Thank you. Can we all stand? Your word, Lord, says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Lord, help us not to take this liberty for granted, Lord. Help us to be sensitive to your spirits and obedient in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we'll all stand and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all for coming tonight, and we are going to have the candidates from Senate District N, which is the new area, and we will do the same format. We'll give them 1 to 3 minutes to be able to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their platform. Then I'll have a couple questions, and then we'll open it up to any questions that you have. We have it going on 2 live streams, so that will be there for people that either want to check in or listen to it later or something like that. So if I can have 3 candidates come up, and I'll leave it up to the 3 of you to decide who goes first and who goes second. We'll see how nice you play.
Sure, I'll start. Hello everyone, my name is David Wilson. Obviously we're all here running for Senate District N. I've moved out to Alaska about almost 24 years ago to combine my higher education. So I came to go to school, went to Alaska Pacific University, decided I wanted to become a teacher, and then I decided I wanted to work in mental health with kids, and then I went into healthcare management. So I have degrees in education, psychology, and my MBA in health service administration. I started my time in politics just as there's a short-term special election for the city of Wasilla, and just talking it over with my wife and praying about it, and something that I decided that I wanted to give back to the community and thought that was the best way I could do that. So I ran for that special election, and I won that seat for a 2-year term for the city of Wasilla, then ran again for that seat and got elected to that, and sort of just got interested in running for the legislature after talking to our mayor, who just talked about some issues and thought that maybe I should probably put my name in the hat for that opportunity. And there was a lot of things going on, and especially in healthcare, and we are the most expensive place in the world for healthcare services. So we're all just one major medical away from bankruptcy in the state of Alaska. And that's something that a lot of it has to do with a lot of policies and things that are in there. There's the 80th percentile rule. And we have a lot of folks that are, it's just hard to explain other than just want to capitalize on their greed, and Alaskans pay for that. And so trying to introduce a piece of legislation to help lower that cost has been my focus, and just trying to pass common sense legislation to make sure that we still have freedoms that we all love to enjoy, especially when it comes to burdensome regulations on entities. And I think we all saw that during the COVID times, and that's why we again try to introduce, after COVID, introduce legislation to help ease businesses so they can continue to meet telephonically, not in person, and that we can still provide telehealth going through that time. And so that's something that we passed, and I'll be quiet because I'm sure we're here to answer your questions, and so I want to make sure there was enough time to everyone can ask us questions. So thank you.
Hello. Well, my name is Scott Clayton. My wife and I have Morgan. We have 2 kids, a 7-month-old little girl, Eliza, and a 2.5-year-old son, Russell. We love those kids. They give us a run for our money. They're all over the house. I went to Brigham Young University and studied business. And came back and started working for a company called Pitch 59 doing UX UI. It's app development, web development. And I had enough time working at home that I could substitute teach as well. So I've been working throughout the borough, and what really stirred me up to run was my experience in teaching throughout different schools. And as I was going to and attending school board meetings, and seeing the different solutions to the problems, I was saying, you know, this isn't just a problem in the Matsu Valley. This is a problem statewide. Our student outcomes, we, just like Senator Wilson is saying, we spend a very large amount on education, $17,500 dollars per student in the state. And the solution is not to spend more money, but to completely reform how we're teaching our kids and what we're doing. And so I just wanted to see, do we have any Marines around here? Anybody in the Marine Corps? The Marine Corps, I'm going to take a different approach real quick, introducing myself. The Marine Corps was founded in 1775. Founded in a bar, Tun Tavern. It's actually one of the things that the Marine Corps is very proud of, is their drinking history. This is something that a lot of traditions, they built it into the Marine Corps. You drink in the Marine Corps. And I don't drink. And one of the things I've noticed, we could say a lot of stuff today. We could tell you all sorts of opinions, things that we feel, things that we want to get accomplished, things that we promise you we will do. And it's very hard to say, well, is he going to do it? Is he going to go into Juneau and hold strong, right? And so I was trying to think of ways that I could say, well, let me tell you things that I did that were very difficult. Sounds silly, but when you have your brothers in the same, just grab a beer, and you're like, hey, I don't drink. What happened is I made that decision before I joined. Before I joined, I knew my faith. I knew the decision I made was that I wasn't going to be drinking alcohol, so it was easy. I just went to him and said, hey, I will drive you anywhere. If you need me, I will come and pick you up. I will be there for you, but I'm not going to drink. It was easy. And that's what you do politically. You say, these are my hard lines. And so, while my hot topic is education, and I believe the hardest thing we can do, the worst thing that we can do for our kids, is just push them on, pass them up. You're okay. We're not going to hold you accountable for not coming to class, not turning your assignments. We're going to push you through. We are destroying our kids. And it is the most dangerous thing of our state, because we don't feel the effects of not educating our youth right away. That's why I'm still stirred up, because unless we change it now, we will not have a state down the road. It is absolutely important. It's why I'm running. So I'm excited to answer all your questions, and I think we'll have enough time to do that. So I'll leave it to Stephen.
Yeah. Testing. Testing. It takes a while for it to register. Okay, technology. There we go. I'm Stephen Wright, and I'm running for Senate District N, like these folks here. A little bit about me. I was born here in Alaska, moved away when I was little. I always had it at the top of my list when I joined the military to make it back to Alaska, and I did. I got an assignment to Iraq at about 18 years into the military. Oops, I think I touched it. Okay, there you go. I gotta turn it around so I'm not touching it. Okay, but anyways, so while I was in the military, in the Air Force, I had an opportunity to go to school. Some of the assignments I had allowed me to go into school in the evenings, working. Once I completed my training that I needed for apprentice while working as an avionics technician. And so I went to school. I graduated from Park University after about 7 years of going to school active duty. So I kind of did it in the evening, and then when I was on night shift, I went to school during the day. But anyways, I got my bachelor's in accounting and management, and my master's. I continued on when I went to Texas as a tech school instructor, and I got my master's from Wayland Baptist University in Wichita Falls, Texas. So that's just a little bit of history. Actually, funny thing, my master's is in healthcare administration, so I studied healthcare administration as well. So my concern and why I decided to run for office was I kind of saw what was going on with the state as far as how big and bloated the budget had been getting, and some of the concerns that I had with what was happening with the permanent fund and how the private economy was getting squashed. And so that kind of got me in. I was a teacher as well. I taught, when I retired from the military, I did the Troops to Teachers, and I got an intern certificate, and I taught in Southeast Alaska for a year. So I've been to Southeast before. I don't recommend staying there too long because it rains a lot. So those of you that go down to Juneau will see what I'm talking about. So anyways, that's just a little bit about me. I'm glad to be here and to answer your questions. And I guess we'll go from there.
Okay, so I will go ahead and ask one question and then have you all answer. So are you going to vote yes to have a constitutional convention?
Yes. Yes, I will.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so if that passes, then tell me 3 things that you would like the convention to address.
Okay, the first thing I'd like to see the convention addressed is how our judges are picked. That's very important because a judge told a governor that they could veto our permanent fund. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would, of course, we have the opportunity to have a convention every 10 years. We get a vote on it with the census and the redistricting and all that stuff. So the good thing about that is we can, so the judges, the permanent fund formula, put it back in the way it was, traditional, have a 50-50, 5-year average. We need to average earnings because that's how we invest in our economy is through the permanent fund. And then the third thing I think that we need to fix is, I have a whole list of things. Now I'm going blank. Boy, that's a toss-up for the third. Yeah, no. Just a second. The third thing that I would fix would probably be, I'd probably say maybe term limits, maybe have some kind of term limit thing put in as well. I guess that would be third.
I think for the first 2, you got me dead on. Judges and PFD would be an easy one to say right off the bat. Those have to be done. Other one is election integrity, how we handle our elections. Which, no, it's, I know you agree to. So, yeah. And I think we all do. Although I'm pretty outspoken with this, I think we do ourselves a disservice incorporating machines. They're easily corrupted. I think we get rid of machines, and the logistics are easy enough that we can hand count paper ballots. And I've said this before. It took me 10 minutes to come up with a better election process in my basement than. That would just be easy, and I think that needs to happen. So those are my 3.
Yeah, I think the first 2 are very similar, dealing with the way the judges are selected, something similar to the confirmation process that most of our commissioners and other appointed folks go through would be a little bit more simplistic. Gets away of just having the folks in the bar picking their own teammates from the bar. To be their judges. I understand that's a very interesting process for people that have to go through that. Second one would be very similar as well, as establishing a PFD because of what the judges decided, that it's no longer considered appropriation, so redefining that. And also redefining our Rights of Privacy Act because of the pro-life situation issue. That would give the state a little bit more clarity on how to protect the unborn.
What, if you are elected and go to Juneau, what are the first couple of bills that you will pre-file before you take office in January?
The first one that I file is similar to the one that we filed before, is the repeal of Certificate of Need. That is a law, basically, it's called a Repeal of Con for short, but it's a law that would allow open facilities, basically free market for healthcare. Right now we have an establishment, a monopoly of healthcare providers, of entities that can bring in healthcare clinics, and there's lots of loopholes of who can provide those opportunities, and it's not an equal playing ground for the private market, and that also helps keep some of your healthcare costs a little bit higher in Alaska. And so that's something that I've been championing and trying to continue to champion during that time period.
So I would support getting rid of ranked choice voting. I think it would be one of the first things that I pre-file is a bill to get rid of Prop 2, and close I would submit a bill for a pro-life bill. I think it needs to be done, and everybody's talking about it, and we need to see action in that front if we do want change to happen. I think we see a lot of people talking about, well, the compromise bills of 15 weeks and however many weeks, they don't do far enough. We need something to be submitted that does go all the way. And someone needs to start that. I want to be that person, so.
Yeah, I too would pre-file a bill for pro-life. You said 2? No. Okay, so the second one I would do is, because I like looking at budgets and things, fraud, waste, and abuse bill that would incorporate the fact that we have thousands of positions that aren't filled within the state budget, having them go into earnings-based account instead of become slush funds for departments. That would be another bill I would consider filing.
Okay, Jessica. So do we have some people that would like to ask questions? Okay, all right.
Chris, will you go ahead? Would you,
Oh, right here.
people that want to line up, would you line up over this wall?
Mr. Wilson, would you join a binding caucus and sell your vote to leadership by joining?
I think the days of the binding caucus are over. In the Senate, we have not had a binding caucus for the past 4 years. So 2 sessions, we have not had a binding caucus, and I don't think we won't have another binding caucus. I think that in terms of, I think that we need to make sure that we all sign to follow the rules of engagement through our uniform rules, which is our established, and to follow, make sure that every legislator is going to agree to follow our uniform rules. The only thing that we need to make sure we have.
Well, I heard about one a few years ago. Was that when it ended?
Not in the Senate. We've not had one in...
Oh, it must be the House.
Yeah, and I can't speak to that body,
Yeah, okay.
but we in the Senate, we have not had a binding caucus in 4 years.
Okay. Mr. Scott, with education, would you vote or try to bring up a bill that the parents have the rights first before the school does?
Absolutely. I believe in school choice. I want to respond to binding caucus as well, because I do believe that should be illegal. I think preventing people from having a free vote and illegally binding their vote is absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
It's anti-democratic, that's obvious. I think it speaks to the corruption of the legislature that ties their hand in what they're doing. If I come to somebody and say, let me explain my point, and they say, I can't even vote for that. My vote's been blocked. My vote's been spoken for, I can't do that. Now, whether that's how it actually goes, the back and forth, that's not the point. That's how it plays out. And that's absolutely wrong. I'm going to take the time to just say this if I can. One of the things we talk about is term limits. And one of the things that I want to put forth that I've been speaking a lot about, and I have positive reactions at every door that I talk to about this, is I want to implement term limits, but for committee seats. I think the danger of being in a legislature for so long is they position themselves in power to use that seat over people. That's part of the corruption. That's part of the extortion you see, the corruption in the legislature. So I just wanted to add that to it.
Okay, Mr. Wright, since you've seen these jobs that are not being filled and the money is there and becoming a slush fund, what are you going to do about that? Do you think that you'll be able to do that? Because I've asked Senator Hughes about the slush fund they had for the, the bridge that was going to go to Anchorage? Connect Garden Bridge, yes. Because that hasn't been built, and for years, they have built up money for it. Have you seen the money in that?
Yeah, I know we can't afford fund government, or we're not supposed to afford fund government as part of our constitution. Definitely, I mean, I think there are things that can be done. Like in the military, we had quarterly budgets, basically. We had an annual budget, but the monies would be distributed quarterly, so you wouldn't have the big drop of all these funds that are any purpose funds. Any kind of general fund is for basically any purpose. And so when these funds are dedicated through the federal government or whatever for specific projects, whether the state does the matching on them or not, I guess that all depends. But there's ways that you can ensure that maybe after like 90 days of a position's filled, that money reverts to an earnings account, like an earnings reserve account, or something like that. But I do believe we had some issues with the binding caucus a couple years ago in the Senate. I think it was with Kathy Giesel, so I don't know how that goes. But anyways, those are my two thoughts there.
I think that's the one I was thinking of.
And she's running again, by the way.
I have two questions for Mr. Wilson. If you're reelected and go back to the Senate, will you join a Muskrat caucus with Stedman, Stevens, and Bishop?
I plan to join a caucus full of Republicans. Otherwise you don't have 11. I mean, unfortunately, due to redistricting, we lost a Republican seat. We might lose another one, and we don't have, right now, if every single Republican legislator gets elected, I think we only have 11. And so without those individuals, you don't have a Republican caucus. And so you're asking me, will I want to join a willing caucus with Democrats? And no, I do not want to join a caucus with Democrats. That is not my choice. I have not been in communication with Democrats in joining a caucus. I wanted to join a Republican-led caucus.
Okay, I've been hearing whispers, rumors on the street that if it's a Democrat majority in the Senate, and Stedman, Stevens, and Bishop are not in finance, they will join with the Democrats as a Muskrat caucus. And you won't do that?
I have not been in any contacts with anyone in terms of organization. Right now, I've been focusing on running my own race.
Just say yes or no.
And
That's not answering. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to give background for individuals that may be watching that may have more information about why the situations and how things are ran and how things are done. And so I can tell you that right now, my answer is no, I don't plan to join a Democratic caucus. I'm focused on getting Republicans elected so we can serve in Republican majority in the Senate. That's my goal. I have not been communicating with Democrats on any type of way of organization. I haven't had organizational talks with anybody. And so I can tell you that as of now, today, my answer is no. I don't have any plans to do that. The election is going to be the election, and I hope that we have more than 11 elected Republicans join the Senate so we can have a Republican-led majority to help our Republican governor and hopefully Republican-led House.
Thank you. My second question is, if you're elected again for the next session, will you vote for a final concurrence budget that doesn't have a full statutory PFD in it?
And so, takes a while for it to come back on. So the final budget vote, I tell people that I have led those debates on the floor, a full PFD of votes. Your additional budget, I am going to take some time. So yes, I will vote for a final budget as long as it's a budget that has the reductions. It all depends. It's sort of hard. You're trying to bind my vote now, like a binding caucus would do. I have no idea what the budget's going to be. I can't tell you if I'm going to vote for a budget until I see the budget. I have in the past voted for budgets that did not have a statutory PFD. I voted every single time for a PFD. I support a full PFD. I offered amendments to vote for a full PFD. I made sure this year your PFD was funded. So what happened was we had a mishap in Ledge Legal. We caught that on the floor. we found a way to offer that in another amendment that Senator Shower had. So he offered the amendment, but we realized that amendment was not funded. That's why he ought to offer Amendment 17 as amended, substituted amendment, so we can find a way to fund that full PFD. And so I support the full PFD. I also offered your energy rebate. I don't call it an energy rebate. It was $1,300, and I considered that last year's payback for the PFD. Unfortunately, we didn't have the votes for concurrence to pay for that. I always support a full PFD. You will not find a vote that I have not voted for a full PFD.
Thank you.
Thank you three for being here. This question is for all three of you. Year after year, and I'm stating as an election year, we always hear the promise, you're going to get your full statutory PFD if you vote for me. And it seems that we always find that when people get elected and they go into office, we find that they are beholden to the swamp, the special interests of Alaska. Whether that be the unions, the NEA of Alaska, healthcare, any of the big three out there that are constantly costing us Alaskans to receive our full PFD. It's needed for them, not for us. We've had people say, I'd rather be feasting at the table than...
Question, please.
It's following, coming up. Feasting at the table rather than collecting the scraps on the side. Where do each one of you stand? Are you for Alaskans? Are you for feasting at the table, making sure the special interests continue to receive the most money?
I'll go first on that one. I would immediately file a bill to repeal SB 26. And Senate Bill 26, what it does is it creates a percent of market value. And with a permanent fund, it's average earnings, and it should always remain average earnings. And the statute's still in the book that keeps it average earnings. So I would definitely, what was the question again?
Special interest.
Yeah, okay. The special interest, I wouldn't be able to help them much, so I'm definitely going to be for a full quarter fund dividend. So.
And that's kind of what I was going to get at too, is one of the most dangerous things is probably, in the political realm, is probably a politician that has, that you don't have leverage over. And so one of the things that I've thought a lot about is somebody trying to come and hold my political career over my head. And me just smiling and saying like, well, friend, I don't want a political career. And I don't need one. And that kind of power and that freedom allows you to move freely. I think the sentiment is, are you going along to come along? Are you going to play the game to play the game and advance your agenda? And not having a personal agenda really does allow you to represent the conservative Alaska we know. And in the Mat-Su Valley, more than anywhere, where nearly 85% conservative, we should have somebody that we say, well, at the least we know if we elect Scott Clayton, we can sleep at night. We can know that he's not going to go and sell his vote. He's ready to die on the Hill. And I think that's important. You have to trust the person that he's not going to go and trade votes to advance whatever it is that you want to get done. So, yeah.
I actually had this experience. I had someone who donated to a medical provider who donated to my campaign and contacted my office and told me that he wanted me to vote a certain way on a bill. It was expanding the scope of practice for a different, similar provider type, and I voted against the way he wanted me to vote. And I called, make an appointment after session, and he had the receptionist tell me, Mr. Wilson, Dr. So-and-so says he's no longer able to see you anymore, and you would understand why. And that's what happened. I was shocked. Wow. I didn't think I would lose a medical provider over the way I voted on that situation. So no, I tell folks I'm not beholden to anyone but to my constituents. So that's the way it should be.
Okay, this thing's on. All right. A couple of you are teachers. One of my first questions is going to be this. what do you see as the best way to help our students in this state? Because our scores are so extremely low on our fourth graders right now. And what is it, 59 or 50 and 49 between reading and math. Are you going to introduce some kind of program where we stop all the needless stuff that kids are learning and focus on basics like math, reading, writing? I'm really fed up with it myself because I can't even, I got to tell the kid how much change to give me back at the cash register. This is sad. It's epidemic in this state. So I'd like to hear from each one of you what your plan is to help these kids out, because that's our future and it doesn't look bright.
Well, I'll go ahead and take that one first because I have a lot to say on this matter. Somebody throws something at me if I'm talking too much. Our education system needs some serious work. And part of the problem is that we're trying to help kids, but in the wrong way. We think that by putting hard lines in the sand that they're not going to meet that line. And what we know about kids is that they really do fall to the bars we set. They will slump, they will slack off, they will take the path of least resistance because they're smart. Kids want to do the least work to get the result. And right now, we hand them high school diplomas for attending daycare. And that's what schools become, social education, daycare. Have you attended? Forget that, you don't even need to attend. Today, I had 70% of my classes missing in taking attendance. And I see that a lot. I see a casual nature about education, and it's mainly because we are afraid to implement consequences to actions. And this speaks to society in general. What we are seeing across the board is a lack of accountability for our actions, whether it be crime, whether it be personal things like abortion. I don't want to be held accountable, it's an inconvenience. Speaking about the most precious gift we are given, or education, the answer is not money. We do not need any more distractions in our school, because the main problem I'm seeing personally as a teacher is that a teacher has to compete with distractions to keep the attention of the students. An article written that was kind of passing around recently talked about the teachers needing to go and put out fires in the classroom day by day. That's what they spend their time on rather than teaching. And so as we spend more money to get more computers, more aids, more technology, it's just increasing the distractions. So some of the solutions are reading by third grade, a middle school performance test that is standardized across the state. If you do not meet this reading proficiency, math proficiency, writing proficiency, you cannot go on to high school. And then high school performance standards that are set in stone. So, and we'll speak about education probably a little bit more, because I do want to get more.
I can take it. Well,
Hello?
Okay, I can take that one. I was a teacher briefly when I retired from the military in a small school in Southeast Alaska where I had 4 different grades in my class. So, and we also had kindergarten through 5th grade. And so it's important to have a curriculum that actually matches what the kids need. So if they need more time reading, then just spend more time reading with them. We use phonics and other things. So it comes down to what's happening in the classroom. We have to have those basic fundamental educational ideas front and center. So, like for example, here in the Matsu, we've got the Tech High School, and that's a really, really good high school if you go there. So they have really good achievement in that school. And I think we need to go beyond just grade school, the tech school. So when I was an instructor in the military, I get kids just out of high school that I had to teach how to use wrenches. So, I mean, it goes both ways because you have to have an aptitude to do certain things. So the mechanical stuff is also an important thing as well. So being able to use a wrench and do specific tasks. that's an important thing as well. So there's a wide spectrum of reading, writing, arithmetic, and then technical type activities that can be done.
So, that's all. There we go. The MATSU leads the way when it comes to school choice. You can have your child go to any school in the district as long as they're open. We have some that have a lottery system, like some of our Voc Tech are very popular, and so that's done a little bit different. But one of the things that we should change is the way we pay our homeschool kids. Our homeschool kids are only worth 9/10 of the dollar rather than in school. So we need to fix that system. And we should also fix the way we fund education in our SIS schools. Our education formulas are more complicated than our oil tax structure. We have all these different multipliers for this and different multiplier for that, and it's way complicated the way that we fund education in our state. We need to simplify this. As Mr. Clayton talked about in terms of attendance, our schools get paid basically for a point in time study. After that point in time date, then once their attendance is there, they get funded for that cap. I would like to change that to more of a daily attendance average. And so you need to encourage kids, school districts, teachers, need to encourage the kids to continually to go to school and to be in school in order for the school to get paid for those services. So we make sure that we're funding, the money is following the student and not just staying with that school, even though the student may leave that school district or go to a homeschool or private school situation. And vouchers, I'm a huge fan of the voucher programs too. We should just allow parents to find the best education place for our children. I'm a huge fan of Voc Rehab, and luckily in our state, we have a high number of trades that kids can graduate with and go directly to work. We're a resource-based state, and I'm happy to say that we have a lot of schools that prepare kids for the future. Now, other than that, we should obviously, teach kids a little bit better about finance, and the Read by 3 program that just passed was a good start of a new program that could help get kids better proficient, but that's going to take another generation of kids to go through that pipeline. But we got to continue looking at programs and looking at the evidence base to see what we can do. And I agree, throwing money at it's not the best situation, but it's just got to find those folks that are dedicated to continue to make that change and champion. We had a Dina Bishop, who used to be our superintendent out here, go to Anchorage, and then she testified in Senate Finance saying that please don't give us more money, that money won't touch the classroom. And it took her to retire for her to be able to speak that type of truth to us, because she wasn't afraid for retribution from her folks. And so I agree. We just need to continue to working with taking our most successful school districts, seeing what's working with those, and copy that on to other school districts, but without limiting school, local choice. I also believe that we need to make sure that we empower school districts to have that local choice and control when it comes best to what that community needs for its kids.
Okay, there we go. The alternative schools that are out there, what is that, Central Matsu Central? That's the other one. They seem to have extremely well adapted children. I listened to them at one of the school board meetings. They're very articulate with their speech, very intelligent children. And then they graduate early. And if you look at their success, and this is not a public school, they're there at the assembly meetings trying to get money to build a facility for themselves. And I'm a taxpayer. Well, doggone it, I go down Bogart, and I've got 3 high schools on that street that I'm paying for this valley. And these kids are going over there doing really well, and they're not getting that money. So I have a problem with that, and I'd like you guys to think about it, whoever gets reelected, keep that in mind. Where's that money going? We have facilities, but they need facilities. So am I buying more schools? I'd rather give the school to the ones that work.
Well, and if I may just respond to that, I think I've heard so many people talking about school choice and giving that power to the people and to the parents. It's sad to me that we see such desperation for it. It shouldn't be that way. And it's almost when you talk to parents like, please, I can't have my kids go to public school. It's a nightmare. And it shouldn't be that way. So we've let it go too far. And to your point, I completely agree. public education, the most expensive education for the least outcomes in Alaska. Stephen makes a great point about trades.
Yeah, one other thing, I had 2 kids go to Matsu Central, and they did homeschooling for, one of them did it for 2 years, the other one did it for 1, and went back to high school. So, yeah, there's opportunities there, and the voucher system, there's not a lot of money there. I mean, he used one of his credits to do gym class at the Alaska Club, and there's some other things. But there should be more opportunities made available to you, the Matthews Central Schools. So.
Well, I'll sit down. I got more questions for you, but I'll give you a break if somebody else a chance. I'm curious if I turned it off. Oh, you did turn it off. Okay. I'm curious from the 3 of you looking out here at this audience, what you might think is the most important thing affecting the people here tonight for you to be able to address.
I think the number one thing that's sort of affecting us all is the high rate of inflation and the cost of goods and services within our state. I mean, that's something that Alaska has normally been on the back trend of recessions in previous, decades. We've always seemed to be a little bit on the lag, so it doesn't hit us as hard. But this one, it's hitting us at the same time as the lower 48, and we need to look at ways that we can better prep and find ways that we can help try to lower the costs, especially with food security. That goes into a whole other entities of how we can try to help licensing for companies, trying to bring in workers, trying to lessen that, trying to find ways just to lower the cost of goods and services within the state. It's very doable. And trying to find ways that we can help the Department of Commerce with their sort of the regs that they have to do for businesses. The cost, I mean, I have, in the cost of like what are they, substance abuse counselors are getting the same rate of pay as someone flipping a burger. And so how are you going to compete with that? So we're losing high-skilled workers to entities that could just pay more. I have a friend that I go to Rotary with, he's a chiropractor, he lost his front desk receptionist to Walmart because Walmart paid more. And I was like, man, how bad of an employer you have to be to have lose something in Walmart? But it is what it is. I mean, we're losing a high-skilled workforce. So, and that's just causing him to have to raise his prices and keep that flow. So just trying to find ways that we can help folks out and trying to find ways that we can make sure everyone who's living paycheck to paycheck, which is a high percentage of folks that live in the valley, unfortunately, in certain communities, and trying to find a way that we can help that burden. A full PFD would definitely help that as well. But trying to find more systemic systems of change that we can try to make to just help everyday Alaskans like that.
One of the things I'll say is that Alaska was very susceptible to feeling this inflation because of how underprepared we were. Alaska is one of the least business-friendly states in the country, and we weren't prepared for this in many ways, not just our ports and freight and cost of transporting goods and our infrastructure in the state, but our permits and laws and licensing throughout the state. I was just hunting in Healy, and I don't know if you guys have been to the Healy restaurant. It's just outside of it. It's called the 49th State. I don't know if you guys have been to it. It's amazing. It's like a phenomenal restaurant. It's gorgeous. It's huge. It's really elaborate. And you go in and you're like, what in the heck is this restaurant doing in Healy? And I talked to people about it. I was like, this is so random. This is a gorgeous place. It's as big as this church, and what is it doing in Healy? Why don't we have this in Matsu? And they said, we would never go there. Their permits wouldn't let us open that there. They don't give enough licenses. What? Matsu is the place that's growing the most in Alaska, yet we're making it harder for businesses to grow. So one of the things to combat the inflation overall is making this a more small business friendly state. So, and that's just one thing that I would say is affecting Alaska in general, is our business infrastructure and our regulations that we have that restrict business.
Yeah, I I agree with that as well. I think my battery died because we've been bars. So I agree with what they had to say. It's the private economy that's been hurt the last few years, and that's where we need to put our focus. We need to make sure that these permits and licensures and everything like that are made readily available. And the other thing that I was thinking of, other than what they were saying, was the cost of affordable housing as far as the private sector, because only like 1% of Alaska's land belongs to the private sector. So I think we need to make sure that, like with the Connecticut Bridge and some other things, a lot of land can be opened up, prices could go down, and I mean, we could do all kinds of different things. Like, I know when you buy a house, you have this insurance you gotta buy if you do it through FHA, but the state has options as well where we could make that the insurance a better deal and lower costs. We're technically helping out the residents that are willing to invest in a large property or invest in a home. So it's just some of the thoughts I had.
Okay. Second question is, are all of you satisfied with the way we pick our judges? And if you're not satisfied, what would your approach be to changing the way we pick our judges?
I'm not satisfied with the way we pick our judges. I haven't heard many folks in the MSM that seem happy about the way we pick our judges. The one thing that we could probably do right now that'd be the most effective is try to change that through a constitutional convention.
Well, and I too am unhappy with how we select our judges. It is an inside job, and I do believe that the best solution is not to pass it through the legislature, but Concom, because it seems like there's going to be less gridlock doing it that way.
Yeah, the current way that we pick our judges doesn't work very well, because we go to the Alaska Bar Association, which is a bunch of liberal lawyers, and they're picking them for us. So that's probably not the way to go. So we need to definitely address that in the Constitutional Convention, and I'm 100% for a Constitutional Convention. So that hopefully we'll be able to get that taken care of as one of the first things.
Yeah, go ahead. Then we'll see if anybody else has a question, Tom.
All right, my next question is, have any one of you ever saw a nonprofit do their job so well they put themselves out of business? And if not, why do we still give them more and more and more money every year?
Well, that is a great question. And I've worked with a couple nonprofits, not as many as I'd like, but Reach 907, great nonprofits, Band of Brothers here in the Valley that help tons of people. And they do selflessly give, and they rely on donations. And whether we attend BNI or Rotary, I know that we do meet these people, and they're constantly donating, saying, we're kind of operating month to month, paycheck to paycheck, just barely getting by, and you know, we've already cut down pay, and so we've met those nonprofits that are scraping the bottom of the barrel every month to do good, and they're just getting by. And I think a lot of people turn to the government for solutions, when it should be organizations like that or churches that really are the solution to a lot of the problems that people face.
You know, I feel that there are a lot of good nonprofits. Churches are nonprofits that do a wonderful mission. As Scott said, you know, Rotary, there are service organizations, Lions Clubs, those are wonderful nonprofits that are service oriented and that just want to serve the community. But unfortunately, you know, we have some others that are just chasing the dollar of grants, and I feel that those grants should be public or private sector. grants. I think we have a program, NIT, which is a private entity, which should be eligible, that does trades training, that should be eligible for the same funding opportunities as some of those other nonprofit entities that are very similar in services. They have the same or better outcomes than some of those other grant-funded nonprofit trade schools, but that's a for-profit business, and we should be able to not use those grant funds to pad their own profits, but to be able to provide services, maybe some scholarship opportunities for those children, for those kids going through those programs, but just trying to find ways that we can do that. I think that's the hard trade-off, is how do we make things competitive for the private and nonprofit sector. And I think more so the nonprofits that you're referring to are probably nonprofits that are out there just chasing government dollars to provide services on a contractual basis, which should be there for private and non-private vendors, as I feel. And whoever does the job the best should be able to get those funds. And the show the best, whoever applies the best for those requests for the request for proposals or those RFPs should get the job done.
Yeah, it seems that a lot of these grants that are offered, they look for specific criteria. Maybe that should be expanded, and maybe the amount or the number of consecutive years that you receive the funding should be changed. I mean, there's a lot of things you can look at it structurally just to make sure that the private sector is competitive along with the nonprofits. So you have to look at it in different ways. I mean, the amount of money that we grant out might have to be curtailed here in the next few years, but to help boost back the private sector, so we're able to have appropriate expenditures for appropriate items. So that's just my thoughts.
Okay, so my understanding is we give money to nonprofits to prolong the nonprofits, not to accomplish a mission. In other words, we give money to nonprofits to get homeless off the street. We get 3 times the homeless on the street. Okay. Medical. A lot of other nonprofits, they all have missions. They have a mission to accomplish. Do they ever, in your opinion, reach the end, accomplish their mission, and it's over with, it's done, it shuts down? I can speak to homeless because there's probably, in Anchorage alone, I bet there's 15,000 people that make a living off the homeless. Nobody wants to see that shut down. Not because they help the homeless, because they have employees that money is feeding. I think those employees could find other jobs.
So I think you make a really good point. And one of the things that I'll say is it seems that we're very good at acting after the damage has been done. And, one of the things they say is after a person with, mental health issues comes into hospital, it's already too late. Once they're at that point, I mean, you're at a really bad stage if they're in the hospital. A lot of the solutions to these problems are a lot of preventative stuff. So we talk about education, we talk about trade schools. One of the things that you do leaving the Marine Corps, you have TRS. They sit you down and they say, okay, Marine, what are you going to do after you leave the Marine Corps? You say, I'm going to go to business. And he says, what does that look like? How are you going to get there? How are you going to pay for it? Gets the gears going. And I've said that before, but it's very true with our high schoolers. Are we setting them up for success, or are we pushing them out with a degree with no skills, no ability to do anything, and they go and commit crimes, or sit in limbo and spin their wheels and self-medicate or experiment with all sorts of things that really start to decay their life? And so a lot of the issues we experience are what happens after we see a lack of personal success, a lack of motivation. And on the part of the government, we can do a better job making sure they have the tools necessary to be successful. It's one of the fundamental purposes of the government, is to give them safety, but an education and tools to succeed. So I think as we talk about nonprofits and a lot of the homeless and mental health and health issues, what's really causing that? And a lot of it's societal and family, and those are things, you know, we have churches and nonprofits that kind of help people, big brother, big sister. But I think we could do better in preparing people to combat those and set them up for success.
So I agree. We do have a lot of nonprofits in every entity in life. You know, we have the good and the bad. Unfortunately, it's hard to root out some of the bad, and ways that we can do that is by making sure we fund based on their outcomes. You say you're going to do this, we want to see the measurements, we want to see the data that shows you did what you're going to say that you did to better the mission that we're funding you to provide. You know, I've seen this. I mean, my first couple of years there, I introduced a bill because I knew of a granting program, state funded, that I felt was not the best way to fund grantees within the MAPSU. You know, I've watched the same people who score the grants are the agencies that get the grants. You know, and if you weren't on their good list, and I've seen this where you had the same grantee write 4 applications. They're all exactly the same application. The only thing that's changed is the name. And 3 get scored in the 90s and 1 gets scored in the 60s. It's not about the grant application, it's about the name. And that one entity wasn't on the sort of the good boys list or good girls list, and they got scratched out. And so I filed a bill to get rid of it, and people asked me why, and I told them this is a process. That process has been changed, and it's more on that outcome base, but drawing attention to those type of things when we know about them is the best way to shine a light on those issues and try to make that change.
Some of my thoughts on this, if you look at the government, federal government, any kind of government program, Medicaid, so on and so forth, like, for example, Alaska took all the options. No other state took all the options for programs like Medicaid. So in the same idea, we have to be able to go in and we don't need those options. Let's go back to the average of any other state. We've got 50 states we can look at and see how they're doing. We want to do it the most economical way. So if we do change the process, yeah, you're going to have to cut funds here and there, but that's just how it is. Like the first bill that Mary Patolo filed was to increase the federal program for veterans. So because she believes that they qualify for all these extra benefits. So I don't know that we should go down that road, because the bigger the government gets, the smaller the person is, and also the bigger the government gets, as you can see with any of these programs, the less success they have. So.
I had an opportunity on Saturday night to sit down and chat with Seth Dillon, who is the owner of the Babylon Bee. And he was remarking about a speech that you might have heard called Live Not by Lies by Solzhenitsyn. And so many of the decisions I think you will find, if you get into the legislature, or if you've already been in the legislature, are invitations in one way or another to turn away and ignore a lie, and in essence go along with it without saying anything or doing anything to let anybody know that it's a lie. There was a vote here this last year where the legislature decided to formally pass a citation for Byron Malott. And in that citation, it said that Byron Malott was a noble leader. It said that he was an extraordinary leader. It said that he was a visionary. And I'm wondering if that type of citation was to come before you, and of course most everyone voted for it for whatever reasons, but if that was to come before you, would you vote with everyone else who's voting for it, or would you vote against it as something that, you know, was, I don't know. If you did vote for it or against it, why did you do that? Thank you.
I do believe language matters, and in that case, I would submit declined to vote for that. And one of the things that we see with Second Amendment, or even life, I do believe the Constitution is clear. And if you look at the wording for the Second Amendment, how could anybody shall not be infringed confuse that with anything else? And so I do believe language matters. I do believe it's important what's put into the bills, and it would influence my vote.
Yeah, it's the same here. I would definitely not vote for that, just because based on the reasons why that person was removed from our left office, I would have trouble voting for that. So in my view, I think it's important that it matters. It matters how we vote on things like that.
In my situation, I did vote for that citation. I did not vote for Byron Malott or Bill Walker to be our governor, but a memoriam citation is the way I feel is more giving honor to the family. It's not for the person who's deceased, it's for the loved ones of that family, to honor that, to mourn that person for their life. You know, he's done some great things, he's done some bad things in his life, I'm sure of. But at that point, for me, that was more of an obituary and to give the family some rest. And I just felt that if some legislator wanted to do that for the family, my name's not on that. I did not co-sponsor that citation. You no longer have everyone's name on the citations. In the past, I have crossed my name off of citations because I don't want to be associated with an individual or a group at that time. But now, the way citations are done, the legislature passes them, and the presiding officers sign them, and whoever co-sponsored them signs them. And so I did not co-sponsor that piece of legislation, but honestly, for me, in memoriam citations are obituaries for the families. And I just was always raised, we don't speak ill of the family or people who have been deceased. And what he may or may not have done, that never really had a due process. He quit before due process could be determined, and I wish that process would have been fully investigated out. And unfortunately, he passed before then, so the investigation stopped. But at that point in time, that's not the way I was raised.
Evening. My name's Thomas. It's kind of hard to differentiate from you guys. It just seems like a lot of these are kind of mainstream. Most of you probably were in a very Republican area. So differentiating between the three of you can be a little bit bland, I guess you could say. So I don't know, I'm gonna throw something out there, it's gonna be your perspective on let's just throw out the Second Amendment. How are you going to proactively protect and support our Second Amendment rights for us, proactively?
Well, one of the things that I'll say in answering your question is the first thing that I saw the school board do that I was just really happy with was the, forgive me, it was the SB 6145, the anti-protected female sports. And I looked at it and I said, this is an outstanding bill because it's not waiting for a problem to arrive in Matsu. It's proactively protecting females. And a lot of people's critique of it was, we have one trans athlete, why are you guys making a big deal? It's not a problem here. It's not even seen. We were proactive in it. So while Alaska is a conservative state slowly turning purple, it would seem, as we allow it to, we're gonna see more threats happen to things like Second Amendment. So what I will say to you is, I don't believe Second Amendment is founded for self-defense or hunting. I believe it is for protection from foreign and domestic tyranny from government. That is its purpose, and it says so in the Constitution. And so, like I said before, the wording in the Constitution is pretty dang clear, and I don't believe that you could state it better than the Constitution says. It says, shall not be infringed. And it even outlines what it is for. And so I do believe that, but I do like ideas and bills that come from, I forget the gentleman that put this out, made it easier to get suppressors, for example. Anybody in the shooting world knows that suppressors are a very useful tool. There's no reason why it should be limited in purchasing that. Any Alaskan should have access to that. It's a part of a firearm that they should have reasonable access to. My joke that I do stand by is I do believe that Alaskans, if they could buy an F-16, should be able to. I don't believe that it should be limited to anything. There's no reason for that. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, I too strongly believe in your Second Amendment rights, and they shall not be infringed. So it's something that I think as a state and as a whole, that we're way more red than we are any other color. So, and that's one of those things that we have to make sure is never infringed, and that we have those rights to have and protect ourselves from the tyranny of government. And I believe that that's something that everyone should be able to protect themselves and have the weapon of their choice.
So, I think we're all, again, 2A. Been endorsed by the NRA. My sign's on Chivo. I'm a huge gun supporter, advocate. And I've, this past year, I am co-chair of the Outdoor Caucus, which we, put on the legislative shoot. We had a suppressor demonstration to help educate people on the uses of suppressors. I have a lab, I don't take her out hunting, but I had a hunting lab and, shotgun suppressors. It's not about the noise reduction, it's not like the movies. It doesn't go pss, pss. It's still loud, but you damage the ears of dogs. So it's all about education. This year on Senate Finance, we made Fish and Game more accountable for their Pittman Robertson and Dingo Johnson funds, which they should be using. They send that federal money back, and they should be using it for hunter education, outdoor shooting ranges, making sure the youth have those capabilities, and making sure that we're doing that, because we're in a generation where more hunters and outdoor enthusiasts are retiring than coming into that. And I would love the opportunity to pass down, when we get exchange students from Rotary, I take them out to the shooting ranges. I introduce them to guns. There are sometimes they come from countries that they've never done this, and they think, oh, Americans are all, well, I won't go into those stereotypes. But you can think about the stereotypes that some foreign nations have about Americans and guns. And we take them out, we take them shooting, we have a great time. And it's like, wow, this is nothing what I expected. And I love that joy on taking, my niece came from California, came up here, took her out shooting, and she's a natural. And she went back home to her mom and said, Mom, I want to join a shooting club. And so it's those type of experiences, and that is the joy I love. So I love anything I can do to help make sure that we don't infringe on the Second Amendment. What happened during COVID, saying that sports business was an essential business to keep open, and that was wrong. And we passed that bill in the Senate. Senator Myers passed that bill. I was happy to co-sponsor that. And so it's those type of pieces of legislation, making sure that we use those federal funds that are given to us for those purposes to help educate our next generation of kids, because that's important.
Let me just say something about that real quick, because I want to draw some contrasts right there. Shooting is fun, and shooting can be used for hunting, but that is not the reason we have our Second Amendment. And one of the things that's important to say is that, yeah, I want to teach my son to go duck hunting and moose hunting, and that's cool. My dad taught me to shoot and move, and he taught me how to work as a team and how to talk to each other when we were moving. And for me, it was not because he wanted to go have fun and shoot and move. He wanted to teach me how to protect my family against tyranny. And so one of the things you hear federally, and it will roll down to the state, is you hear people like Joe Biden say there are no reasons, absolutely no reasons at all to ever use violence with a firearm. And I couldn't believe that statement, knowing why we have the Second Amendment. And on the spectrum, although it's on the extreme side, we absolutely have a right to defend ourselves against tyranny with a firearm. And one thing I'll say is we hear people talk about firearms, that they're lethal and that they're weapons of war. And I always just roll my eyes like completely back into the back of my head and I say, of course they are. They are, of course, weapons of war. And of course Americans should be able to have weapons of war, not just an over-under, but a tactical weapon to protect themselves. And so I think it's important to make that known, that as you're standing up for the Second Amendment, it's not so that you can have a fun time shooting with your son at a sporting event or duck hunting. That's the byproduct of it. That's just built into it. You're supposed to be able to defend yourself with weapons of war.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. And we got 76,000 new IRS agents now?
Yeah, 87.
Was it 70? Anyways, so
And they're going to have
what's
guns.
next, you know?
Yeah, they'll have guns.
Okay, let's go ahead and have Candy, I think, has, Tom, did you have another question?
Well, I just wanted to add, like it was kind of stated there, if proactive was my statement, proactive. It's nice to have fun, it's nice and it's great to have the sport, but right now the Democrats and the liberal side are not being passive on their attack on the Second Amendment. They're being proactive. They're taking every effort they can to eliminate, whether it's attacking firearm manufacturers, the people that make the bullets, the material that the bullets are made out of. They're limiting supply. They're driving up the cost. They're tracking purchases through Visa and MasterCard and whatever. How in the state of Alaska, and I mean, this is something I hope you take home and think about. How are you going to be proactive on keeping that infringement out of this state? Because the fact is that all these other things are really nice and pretty, but they're still coming after any and every area they can to degrade the value and the right of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I think we have to counter it legislatively at the same time. You know how all the different how we have what are they called? How we can counter that with not only legislatively, but we can have the judiciary and other things. We could draft legislation to protect against these things from happening as well.
Well, so to comment on that, one of the biggest problems with the Second Amendment and one of the challenges we're facing is that we're electing people that are willing to compromise. And so the way I see it is we need to protect citizens' privacy to purchase whatever they want and keep it private. I also think that there's no reason that we should have to register guns at all. I believe that we could make that statewide. And yeah, when there was a lot of worry about Obama taking guns, although I can't imagine what that would look like because that's insane. But he limited the supply of ammo. That was something that he could cut down, which was devastating. And that was federal action, so it's hard to see what the state could do to fight when federal politics have their hand in the supply. But my main thing is do you want someone that is willing to say, I don't have a huge buy-in to this protecting against tyranny thing. Let's preserve shotguns, let's protect hunting rifles. I don't really have buy-in for everything else. And that compromises what we're seeing right now with Mary Pelatola. That now she's saying, well, I supported our Second Amendment for hunting, but I'm willing to do gun regulation for everything else. And that compromises what I see as a huge threat for the state of Alaska.
Yeah, the thing I was thinking of was attorney generals. If you look at the proactive states like Florida and Texas, they're actually doing something about it. And so we have to follow the lead or be in the lead in a lot of these areas.
You know, I love living in the state of Alaska. We have D's and R's that carry in Juneau. You'd be surprised the number of Democrats that have Glocks in their offices in the Capitol. You know, I tell people I don't walk home without one of my Ruger brothers. It's dangerous walking in Juneau, see the main homeless population and needles everywhere, and I don't carry to go hunting in Juneau. I carry because of the two-legged animal that might come out of the woodwork or who knows what. I mean, I've had that down in Juneau, someone banging on my window, and I call the front desk. If this guy comes in, you're going to hear 3 pops, and you're going to have a problem if you don't take care of the situation outside my window. And so those type of situations happen. We need to protect ourselves. I am not just to go along and talk about compromise. I think that's the problem. It's not about compromising in Juneau. That's not the way I run bills or work with people. It's about collaboration. When you compromise, someone loses. someone always loses when we compromise. You know, well, I gotta give up this, or I gotta come up this. You tell people, this is my goal. Are you on board to get on this train to meet this goal together? We're not gonna try to minimize things. We're not gonna get this. You find people that can go along with that common goal of collaboration instead of compromising, and that's very key in terms of for everything. But you know, we have a very strong 2A legislatures within the D's and R's. It's a wonderful state to live in. I don't know what else, you know, proactively, we are very proactive when it comes to privacy. Yeah, I don't think you'll find another state that has as many that care about privacy laws going through some of the things that we go through. Now, you always have a legislator, one or two, that, you know, they want to introduce a red flag law. And yeah, we kill those. I mean, those don't go anywhere, or, you know, we make sure those aren't going anywhere. We try very hard to make sure those bills are killed. But pro 2A, I don't think you'll find another state more, you know, more pro 2A than in Alaska. I love the state.
Okay, let's go ahead and take Candy's and the other lady's question, and we'll be wrapping it up. So, you have a question, Candy?
I have 3 questions. I'm Candy. I'll ask all 3 questions, and you can answer them. Number 1, were you at the Alaska COVID Alliance Symposium in Anchorage, October 30th of 2021? Or if you weren't there, did you watch it? Watch the replays? Question number 2, were you at the Glen Massey Theater on Constitution Day, September 17th? When both of these, back to the Alaska COVID Alliance, when the world-renowned doctors came to Alaska after they had been to Hawaii, and then went down to Florida. Then on September 17th at the Glen Massey Theater, the Alaska Medical Freedom Symposium hosted out here. Were you there? I know they don't have the replay up yet, but I would like to know if you were there. And also, our third question is if you are aware of the Janus decision that was made at the federal level.
So I'll start and say that I was not at those, and I have reviewed some of the notes for the first one you talked about, because COVID was something I experienced a bunch of hiccups with COVID, with employment and with friends losing their jobs, specifically in the Marine Corps. A lot of the people that I served with didn't want to get vaccinated and were discharged dishonorably or other than honorably, and came up here and experienced some of the people on my hockey team that served over 20 years, about to retire, didn't want to get vaccinated, and were dishonorably discharged other than honorable. And hearing their cases, it was devastating what we allowed to happen to these people that were serving our country. And so that was pretty shocking to see. And then, yeah, to answer your last question, I do know Janus' decision, and our school unions should stay absolutely out of that issue, funding it. So many of our teachers are very upset that their union fees can go anywhere near to fund abortion, and that should absolutely go away.
So last year during that time I got COVID, so I did not attend the first one in October. I was in a speaking engagement that time frame in Anchorage. I did watch the first one, and I watched all the 3 hours during the time I was speaking in Anchorage online for the health symposium. And I am aware of the Janus decision, and I support a right to work state.
Yeah, I wasn't at those symposiums. I heard about them. I paid attention online. I watched some of the segments that Dr. Iona Farr and some of the other ones had presented, and I tried to keep up with it as much as I could. But I didn't make those symposiums. And as far as the Janus decision goes, I'm right to work. I think what we did as a state is the right thing to do, not being forced to have to sign up for state workers to sign up for these unions. So I think that's an important thing, because we have too many unions in the state of Alaska, and we have a lot of stuff that are impacted by that. How the donations, where they spend their money, funding different things like abortion. I don't think that that's an appropriate thing where we should be at as even as state workers. So.
Hello, my name is Jean Holt, and I don't really know what question I'm going to ask you. It's just the frustration of seeing what the heck's been going on down in Juneau. With a broken hip, I ended up watching all the sessions on television and everything, and it is very frustrating, the amount of money that's dedicated to all these nonprofits. And when you say referring to Fish and Game and on the finance committee and stuff like that, not accepting monies, I don't know what that was in reference to. Senator Wilson, only money, I didn't quite understand that, what that bill was about as far as accepting money from the feds for Fish and Game.
We turn money some years on Dingle Johnson and Pittman Robinson funds or federal funds, and they have specific uses and purposes for them, and sometimes they come with match funds, and so the state says we don't want to match those, or we don't have uses for those funds, and so they return those funds. It's just an annual thing. It's all based on lawsuits, and that's why they're named after those.
Right. Well, I know that the legislators have cut back on Fish and Game a lot, but I mean, it's amazing what you guys do behind closed doors for funding all these nonprofits, and the more people whine, not the ones necessarily getting it year after year, but they are getting it year after year. They bring all these people up there to whine to the legislators, and then they get the funding, and then, so my question is, how are your thoughts on bringing the capital to the people?
I'm very in favor of moving, you don't have to move the whole capital, but we can just move the legislative sessions on the road system anywhere between Homer and Fairbanks. I'm in favor of, because it's not right for a constituent normally spends on average about $700 to fly to Juneau to have about 15 minutes with the legislator or to testify on a bill, and that's if that bill happens that day, because sometimes things happen and things are canceled, and so they may have to come back down and spend another $700 to come in person and testify. So I don't know who just has that type of money laying around. I personally don't. I think I'm the least wealthiest senator among the senators. I still pay my student loans back. But so I don't have that financial means to keep going back and forth if I was a private citizen to go lobby my legislature. And so we need to move it for that. I don't believe in closed door meetings. If someone wants to know what's happening, I'll tell you, call me up any time of the week and say, hey, what happened here? What's this going on? What conversations happen here? I tell people anytime, call me and say, hey, he's not here, so I was going to pick on someone who calls, and we have very lively discussions on the phone. And, he's normally here in Big Lake. And so, there's two actually. There's the other one too, the former chair, or I think he's still chair, out there. And so we have those conversations. We need to be more open and transparent. And I'm, pretty much an open book and transparency in terms of, you want to know how a decision was made, I'll tell you how a decision was made. Now, we do have some rules. We don't break the, rules of, what we discuss in certain meetings, because that's their understanding, but we don't discuss legislation or bills in those meetings. Like I'm on the ethics committee, and we can't discuss what happens because of confidentiality unless that person waives that confidentiality on the ethics committee. It's something that we can't talk about because we're bound by those guidelines. But other than that, feel free to ask, and we'll let you know what happens.
Well, I do believe the Alaska Constitution states that Alaska citizens should have reasonable access to the Capitol, and so that means bringing it on the road system, not just the legislature. I believe that it's kept so far away to prevent that testimony in person, which I do believe that Alaska citizens should be face-to-face to be able to put the fear of God into the legislatures and testify about what they really want, not just on the phone where they can sip coffee on the side and bypass their calls. I think that's wrong. So I do believe it's time to bring it away from the lobbyists to the road system, incorporate more of Alaskan citizens. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, my thoughts on that. We definitely need to have sessions outside of Juneau, not especially the important sessions. So definitely the final session for the budget needs to be outside of Juneau, especially the ONA Conference Committee. It should not be in Juneau. The other thing is, I think that that's important, and we can fix this in a couple different ways. We can fix it in the Constitutional Convention, and that's another reason to have a Constitutional Convention. So, and actually fund it in the convention to move the capital. So, and that would keep from, because only like 10% of the people actually live in Southeast Alaska, and even less than that in Juneau. So, it's better that it's on the road system.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm pro-guns, and I have several. And I heard all the talk about what you guys said about guns, but it just did give me, like, is there another side that I'd like to hear from each person on how much you would think about restricting it based on criminals? And I'm just really curious, just what the other side might look like for each of you. That's it.
I'm sorry, can you, in terms of, you want to know how we would ban it for criminals, or how it was, I'm sorry, a little confused on the question.
I heard all the pro guns, which I'm very pro guns, but I'm just curious now, is there a side on the limiting guns to criminals or something in that area that you believe, and it's really educational for me for this question, just out of curiosity for each of you, how you would deal with the restrictions for guns for people, or maybe there isn't any. I don't know.
I think that's why we have guns, because the criminals have access to them as well, or they can steal them, or they can get them some other way. So you have to have access to the right to protect yourself. So
I'm going to address this kind of in a roundabout way, because I'm not for restrictions for guns, and I think when we talk about gun violence, I have kind of a maybe overly simplistic idea about this, but for me, my dad taught me how to love other people, how to love myself, how to treat guns with respect. And with my son and daughter, that's what I do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach them those same things. And that right there, that's the solution. And while we say that's not scalable, that's hard, this is sort of the reason we say you can't force somebody to do right? And our hands are tied with that. But the best we can do is encourage them to turn to places that do teach those things, to love other people and to love themselves and to be aware and taught about guns. I think that we should teach about gun safety in school. I think that's important. It used to happen. It doesn't anymore. So that's one step to prevent people from abusing that.
I'm not in favor of really taking away anyone's constitutional right, but I understand, if I was to ever ban anyone from owning a firearm, it would be someone that used firearm for violence and then was convicted, shadow of a doubt, and that's one of those situations. If you kill someone with a gun, you shoot, and a non-self-defense, I'm just talking about a violent offender who's using a firearm in criminal acts. I think that was the only ban. I think that other felons that did never use a firearm for their situations should have that right restored to them. They didn't, yeah.
Thank you. So the three of you would go ahead and wrap up for about a minute. Each one of you can start whatever order you want. Go ahead. Thanks, Jessica.
Did you say a minute? 1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
That should be enough, yeah.
Got it.
20 minutes to 9, and so.
Yeah, I'm Stephen Wright, running for state senate, and I would like to get your vote right first. I think it's important that we not only vote, but we also vote for things like the Constitutional Convention, and I think that's an important step that we need to do here in Alaska. We haven't had a Constitutional Convention in 60 years, so it's something that I think that's important, as well as another way that we can go about restoring our rights, because if we let the legislature do it, we see what happens. So it's something that we need to be involved in. And I'd like to thank this venue for having us here and to be able to express our ideas and the importance that we all have to have in as citizen legislatures to be able to communicate with the people, constituents of our area. And I know it's important that we get out of Juneau and actually do the work for the people. Thank you.
What I'll say is, I think Thomas makes a really good point in saying that it's hard to see the contrast between people that say the same stuff and then go to Juneau and do something different. And for me, as I'm researching more about this whole world of politics, and it's an entire world in itself, I see that there's a cost, a price to votes and to the way people will act and who they'll side with. And that's discouraging, that's wrong. And the more you see it, the more you're like, this is everything that's wrong with our state right here. And so there shouldn't be a cost to your vote. You shouldn't be able to say, yeah, I'm for the Second Amendment. However, what would that vote be worth if I traded it or sided for this? Maybe a small part, like removing maybe suppressors or high mag or semi-automatic or AR platform. What if I cut that off? What would it be worth to the Democrats? Is it worth something that I could get my stuff done that I've been trying forever? Would I finally be able to get it done? That's what you see. You see effort after effort, and finally, after somebody says, they lay the deal out in front of you, say, I know you've been working for this for a long time. I've had people tell me that you want this, and guess what? We'll give it to you, but you have to do this. That's everything that's wrong in Juneau. And when I say that the thing that you can sleep at night at is that I don't care about all of that. I just want to go and represent my constituents, the Alaska I love, the Christian conservative traditional value, anti-woke, anti-left agenda, protect it for my kids. I want to live in the same Alaska I grew up in forever. And if I go down and I'm hated by the legislature because I don't drink alcohol or by this and that, like in the Marine Corps, well, guess what? The Marines ended up, we're best friends. And what was going to be a big block in saying, what, he's weird, he doesn't drink. No, we still go and we have each other's back. And they know I carry them out of the fire. And that I get their back no matter what. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. You want somebody that you can rely on no matter what. So I want to be that conservative for District N. I want to represent the Mat-Su, the conservative Mat-Su that we are. And I know that I can do that.
So again, I'm David Wilson. Been a state senator for 6 years. I do what I say I'm going to do. I don't lie about things I'm going to say. I've never seen anyone, I have not sold my vote. I can't say that for other folks, but I can tell you what I've done and what I have not done. Selling votes is against law, and I don't want to spend any time in any federal penitentiary whatsoever. I'd be honored to continue to represent this area. I fight hard for the Mat-Su. I also want to thank everyone for coming out for these Giving Up Monday nights with friends and family, and there's other things. I just want to thank school government for putting on the debate. We haven't had many debates going on this election cycle. I think there's only a few more. I think the Wasilla Chamber has one, the university has one, and I think that's it for this cycle. Oh, and maybe we'll talk afterwards. It's going to change. And so, I hope there's an AMAC debate, but there's been some changes. And so, honestly, I just want to, if anyone wants to learn more, I'm willing to sit down with anybody, talk with them, take you out for a cup of coffee. We can go Dutch if you prefer, and just sit down to get to know me on a more personal basis. We are a very personable legislature, has personable elected officials in the state of Alaska. You can see your U.S., you can see your governor, your state representatives, Fred Meyer's cars, and have a conversation. I just always want to bring stability to Juneau and to all my business that I conduct in. I always want to hold myself to the highest esteem possible when conducting that business, and would just love to continue to have conversations with constituents and those watching on Facebook or streaming. If they want to get more information or contact me, it's davidwilsonforsenate.com. And I want to thank everyone again for attending.
I guess they're having a major top 10 discussion back there. Anyway, it's time.
No, we want to hear what they're saying.
Are we caucusing here? Hopefully it's not binding.
Have to be elected first.
So,
No, I believe you.
CJ, I know you have an announcement. Let's see. Caleb, can you play that clip for me? This coming weekend, John Miller announced it last time, was the symposium that Representative Vance, Senator Hughes, and myself are going to be putting on at Bridge of Hope. This Friday night will be a meeting, and then on Saturday we will be, each one of us will be talking. And so, are you able to pull it up? Okay.
If you're like me, you might get frustrated from time to time about government. And you feel like, what can I possibly do? What can one person do? And sometimes we feel frustrated and we want to throw in the towel. But guess what? We need you activated in government, particularly if you're a Christian and you want to bring your Christian kingdom principles to bear on government, but you just don't know if it's possible, you don't know if you can do it. I want you to come to this event here in Alaska. We're having it just the end of the month. Next weekend, it's going to be September 30th and October 1st in Chudiak at Bridge of Hope Church. It is going to be an amazing time of meeting other like-minded people. We are going to have worship. We're going to have some prayer specified to those of you who feel called to government, and we want to infuse you with hope for government. We know that we don't put all of our hope in government, but we can have hope for government. We have some amazing speakers that we're bringing out on that Saturday, and it's going to be really awesome, you guys. These ladies are kingdom leaders in our government, in our state of Alaska government, and in their communities. We have first, our speaker is Representative Sarah Vance, and she's going to talk about how to cultivate courage. Man, we need courage. We need courageous people to rise up, right? And so you can't really do much without courage. So we're going to infuse you with that courage that you need to step up and step out. We need you in this realm. Then we have Senator Shelly Hughes, and she is an amazing leader. She's been in government for several years now, and she's going to talk about how to cultivate wisdom, because we can have all the courage in the world, but if we don't have wisdom, it's really hard to actually be effective, especially in the government realm. And she has really, cultivated that over the years. So she's going to infuse us with that wisdom that we need to all pursue for ourselves. And then we have Mayor Edna DeVries. Now, the mayor has been around for a long time, and she has been building an army of people. She is amazing at bringing people together, and she's going to show us how she builds her tribe, so that you can do the same thing in your sphere. You can start to build your tribe. I know that we can have all of the pieces and we can be as talented as we want, but if we can't find those people to link arms with, it's not going to happen. And so I hope that this time is actually going to be a great time to connect you immediately with other kingdom-minded people, people that can really make a shift in government today. And so don't miss this opportunity. Go ahead and go to leesloan.com, LEIGHSLOAN.com, and register for this amazing event. You won't want to miss it, you guys. Hope to see you then.
So in case you didn't know, you're all my tribe, okay? I know maybe you didn't think you signed up for that, but you know. So you guys are all going to be the examples for whatever.
What
So,
town is that? What town?
you know, when you go to Anchorage, there's Peters Creek by just past Mirror Lake. Yeah. And you'll take the second exit in Peters Creek, and then there's a big church up to the left, and that's where it is. It's called Bridge of Hope. And it's 7 o'clock at Friday night, and then 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. It'll get over about 3 o'clock. And Lee Sloan, when we first started a couple of years ago, Lee Sloan came out from Anchorage because she wanted to do something similar in Anchorage. But then as she, looked at sort of our model and our plan, she determined that she was going to do more conferences. So she's done a conference on business, and she's done a conference on education, and so this is the conference on getting involved in government. So, do you have the mic there, lady? Okay, go.
Yeah, I would like to just make an announcement about this Thursday. During this season, it just seems like we're so busy going from one political thing to the next political thing, next political thing, and it just, it's busy. So we decided to do something fun. How about that? And bring the kids. And Nick's going to support, Nick Package is sponsoring Thursday night at the Palmer Train Depot a free pasta dinner. Come out and have dinner, and we're having games and stuff for the kids to come and do things. They'll get prizes, and just trying to have a fun night in the middle of all this stuff that we're having so much fun. So I've got some flyers here. We were really hoping to be able to feed at least 200 people. So please come on out and have a good time with us. On Thursday at the depot, it starts at 8 o'clock. And bring the children, I'm sorry, thank you for looking at me like that. 5 o'clock. It's been a long day already. But we'll have a good time. And Mayor, if I can, I don't see anybody from the Matsu Women Republican here to announce. Saturday is the We the People dinner, and there's still tickets available, but they're going really fast. There's going to be some incredible speakers at that, and so if you go on to MatsuRepublicanWomen.com is their website, or Google it, you'll find it. They've got a really great dinner on Saturday. That's it.
I think John's right there by you.
Yes, thank you. A couple things. One is we got some campaign signs here with your favorite candidates. Go ahead and grab a sign before you leave if you want one. That's why they're there. Also, if you missed the opportunity to sign up for the ballot counting thing, I got a couple of spaces left. This is basically to show your support for a hand count. And incidentally, our borough has passed a resolution that this election on November 8th is going to be counted by hand. They're also going to have a machine count, but the hand count is going to be the official tally. It's the hand count. And then tomorrow at the borough meeting, they're going to introduce an ordinance that will make the hand count permanent, and they'll get rid of the voting machines permanently. So if you want to come out and show your support for that or comment, that's tomorrow at 6 o'clock. So that's it. Thanks.
We'll have any other announcements? Okay. Oh, yeah.
I don't take that one, Chris. I'd like to board meetings. A few weeks ago, I went to one and found out from parents that they had been letting transgenders in the girls' locker room, bathroom, and with sports. And there was no standing room that day. And I was thinking, we need more of the involvement of people in this kind of stuff, because we've got to put a stop to some of these agendas that they're doing. It's just to bring America down is what it is, and to bring communism in if they can, because that's what happened in Russia in 1917. The Trotsky and Karl Marx gang went down there because they were having problems like America is. Economically, a leader that didn't make good decisions, and that's what's happening here in America, and they're trying to take advantage of that. But anyways, I encourage you to go to all these meetings that you can. Thank you.
So I've asked David, Representative Eastman, to be here tonight. Well, I think he probably was going to be here already, but I asked him just to talk a little bit. If you've been following his case, and you probably already know, and what scares me about it is the fact that if that is successful against him, who knows next? It may be if you belong to a pro-life group, or you belong to the Second Amendment, or, 4-H, or what, that they feel, is not something they want, then you can be challenged with that. So I've asked David just to bring us up to date what we could do. I do know he does have a legal fund that he could take donations for, and of course pray for that judge that either he gets removed out of there or he comes to his senses. So, David?
Thank you, Edna. So between my current district that I represent and the district that I'm campaigning in to represent next year, I cover almost about a third of the valley. And it's a lot of good people, and running for office as a candidate and asking people to vote for me, that also is unconstitutional again. I need to stop doing it. I need to pay the attorney's fees and nominal damages, etc. So that's the short version of the lawsuit. But how do you end up in a situation like this, where in essence what the Democrat Party has decided, and this is going back to 3 months ago, the Democrat Party decided that while election integrity is really important, and trying to overturn an election is like borderline, heresy, and you become an enemy of the state if you're trying to do that. Well, they decided to make an exception because they want to overturn my election, and so they have asked the legislature and voters and petitions, whatnot. The Alaska Democrat Party decided to make it part of their official public newsletter that we needed to overturn my election. And they have decided that if you just change a few little words in our Constitution, it's perfectly constitutional for them to attack democracy, elections, conservatives. So that's how we get here. How we get here is I'm, according to them, an enemy of the state. I am a member of a terrorist group. I am, fascist, anti-Semitic, white supremacist. The list goes on. These are all part of the court case, why I'm a bad person, I shouldn't be in office. Now, normally, in America, you would have all those arguments. You get up here like the candidates that were just up here a minute ago. You make your arguments, you ask your hard questions, and hopefully you don't vote for the guy who, likes Hitler, or something like that. But, in this case, that's not good enough. They tried that last time. Their candidate did not win in my race. And so now they want to set aside the democratic process and achieve their goals some other way. And so, have any of you heard the word insurrectionist in the last year or two? Yeah. Do any of you know how many people have been charged with insurrection in this country? 0? None? Nobody convicted? Nobody charged? No, nobody. But I'm sure there's an insurrection that happened because, of course, I'm an insurrectionist, according to them. And because I'm an insurrectionist, I need to do all these things, including not running for office. So, I brought up my copy of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence for 2 reasons. One, because I was reminded that the FBI literally stole Mary and Paul Hooper's Constitution when they raided their home in Homer last year. That was notable. And then also because this is a document that you really, really need to read right now. Because they are literally trying to rewrite it in front of your eyes and tell you that, you know, black is white and white is black, and everything they're trying to do is perfectly constitutional and perfectly American, and when they impose their own level of tyranny, whatever they can get away with, they'll tell you that they're doing it for democracy. So, under our current rules, there is no state agency to defend legislators who are elected and are being sued for being in the legislature. So that's something that all of us here will either defend or not defend. I didn't particularly choose this, but I am the guy that's facing the lawsuit. So if being able to vote for candidates that you choose is important to you, I would ask you for a donation so that I can help pay Joe Miller, my attorney, so that we can establish that this is not what they're going to be doing in the future for me or you or any of us in the future. You know, the other thing that I would say, wrapping up, is cancel culture. Do you understand what cancel culture is? Because cancel culture is designed to bypass that whole American constitutional law, innocent until proven guilty, guilt by association is not a thing. Set all that stuff aside, it doesn't exist. And now we're going to live in a society where it doesn't exist. And so literally what I'm being told by the judge in my case is, because I haven't canceled all those people in Oath Keepers, the 38,000 or so military veterans, police, firemen, EMT, etc., because I haven't canceled them, those folks who haven't gotten convicted yet of anything, most of them have never been charged with anything. Those that have been charged haven't been convicted. But because I haven't decided that they are bad and canceled them, well, then I need to be canceled. I mean, that's the way it goes. If I'm going to stand up here and say, you, whether you're good or bad or otherwise, are innocent until proven guilty, that's why I need to go. So, on behalf of you who are innocent until proven guilty under our Constitution, which I still live and believe in, I will be standing for your right. I will be doing it in court, in the legislature, and if I get reelected, again next year as well. So thank you.
I'll make it quick because I know it's getting late.
It's on.
Okay. Understanding the threat. I have been graciously asked if I wouldn't be in the forefront of this organization for the state of Alaska. And understanding the threat is since a class that's coming up here on October 21st and 22nd, 2002. It's put on by General Flynn and his organization. I can't promise General Flynn is going to be here for this class, although they are working on it. And it actually is looking pretty good right now. But anyway, they teach you how to organize your community into operational forces to identify roots of corruption and dismantle and hostile networks behind it, and reestablish your reporting form of government. Just real quick, they also go over security threats on your computer, how you can combat them, do some other things to protect yourselves. It's going to be 2 days of very interesting class. At this point in time, we do have a location chosen, but I cannot reveal it until we're about a week or so out. Because of this organization goes all across the United States putting this type of class on. They not only teach civilians, but they also teach law enforcement. So they have been, there has been issues at locations where they have taught in the past. we're trying to keep that issue down. So about a week or so before the class is scheduled to occur, you'll be getting a notification of its location. If you're interested, please contact me. My cell phone is 907-232-6782. You can get me on Facebook or you can get me on email. I'm not hard to find. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tom. Yeah.
I'll just say, I think I might be the only one in Alaska who can say this, but I do know all the instructors personally that are on the bottom of this flyer. Spent a lot of time with them. One person, great former FBI agent. Other person, great CIA agent in the past. All really good people.
So, yes. So wait a minute, Candy, until we get to you, please.
There's an organization called My Faith Votes, and they're looking for an Alaska State Coordinator. If anyone's interested in that, it's for people to rally the vote in their state. It's not a partisan specific, but to, if you want specific details, you can go to the website, but I also talked to the gentleman that is the state coordinator, or mobilizing them in 5 different states. So I have the contact information if you want to be involved or be a coordinator.
I'm sure that's one more thing every one of us wants to be as a state coordinator for something else on top of everything else we're doing. But it's something that would be interesting, once the election's over, for us to maybe have some input to see maybe if that is an organization that would be worthwhile having in Alaska. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm meeting with Richard, who is Kelly's coordinator for going door to door, and I'm just looking for people that would want to go door to door with me, so it's not, me by myself. So contact me. Okay, I'll contact you and anybody else. Richard he was here with Kelly and
Richard Keller.
Yeah, right. And I'm meeting him tomorrow and getting the lowdown in the literature to do that. Thanks.
Okay. And I see you have a notebook, and
Yeah.
you just want to put a sheet of paper back there.
Okay.
And just put Kelly Volunteers at the top, and have people just sign up or something.
That sounds great.
You're
I'll do
welcome
that.
to do that before everybody leaves. So, any other last minute? And we have extended invitation to both Kelly and to Nick to come back to the School of Government. I know they've been here a number of times already, and we're still waiting for a return from Mayor Pierce, as well as from the governor and Alice Massey. I think that's the invitations we have out there that we haven't heard yet from. I'm going to reach out to the school board. Has there been a debate any place with all the school board? I think Valley Republican people had some, but was that just the Republican ones, Kathy, you had?
I think one October 20th for the school board for Wright, and that's the family restaurant at 6 o'clock.
Okay, and is that just going to be Republican candidates?
Right.
Okay, so if we do something for the school board, we'll invite them all, because I know at least in this area, the one that's running against Kendall was served one session ago, and I don't know for sure if he was on the school board when the policy that was just removed was by the current school board. I anticipate that he served on that school board that set that policy up, because that is the supporters that he will have, and whether he'll come or not, I don't know. But so there is, I know, some challenges in our school board things. So yeah.
Yeah, I had a.
Okay, wait till she comes, please.
Hi, I had a real quick message. We're going to, whoever wants to be involved in convention, yes. We're going to be canvassing neighborhoods and with pamphlets and such. So if anybody wants to sign up.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I don't know if you have a sheet of paper, if you want to put something back there on the table for people to sign to, just maybe put convention at the top so they'll know which there was. How many of you attended last week when Jake Libby put on the Con? You did? Yeah, mostly. So quite a few of you did. Okay, good. So, okay, any other last minute? Okay, so if you'll all stand, I'll say a closing prayer. Then I've been reminded earlier that people are either, we won't say it's other candidates against candidates, but as people have been defacing political signs, and I know that happens all the time, and so just if you hear of any of it, just really try to put a squash to it. We need to be respectful. We can have differences of opinion, and that's what makes it great that we live in the United States, in the state of Alaska, and we can have those differences, but there is a line that you don't cross, and that is you don't tear down the other person physically, emotionally, or even in signs in order to be able to make you look better. So, okay? So I'll close. Lord, we just thank you again for this country that you have given us, Lord. And Lord, again, we pledge ourselves to do what you tell us to do, Lord, and to take the righteous steps that you have instructed us to do. We ask, Lord, that you be with all of the candidates, Lord, that you bless them, Lord, and Lord, that you would help us to elect those, Lord, that you have anointed and appointed for this time, Lord. And so, Lord, in doing that, we will give you all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, you all, you know what to do. You need to like, share this video so that more Alaskans can be involved and they can know what's going on in the Mat-Su District, Senate District N's elections and who to vote for. And if you have not gone to our website, Politadick.com, please go and do that right now. It'd be greatly appreciated. Show your support. Help us grow. And if you happen to be from Soldotna or Kenai and you are Homer area and you happen to be listening in right now, I have a trip coming out there tomorrow. It's for just a one-day trip. I do have a more extensive one planned in October, which is when I will be reaching out to you. But if you're watching this right now and you would like to do a very short interview tomorrow, give me a call. You got numbers listed on the top of this video. You guys all have yourself a great night, and we will see you here again the next time. Thank you all for being here.